Friends, we are very happy to inform you that e-modules are prepared for B.Ed program at Telangana by the School of Education, Osmania University under Pandit Madan Mohan Malaviya National Mission on Teachers and Teaching Scheme MHRD New Delhi. It's indeed our pleasure to share with the teacher educators and the prospective teachers and get maximum benefit out of it. It's a first of its attempt by us. We continue to add many more such lessons to share with you all.
Friends, once again I am before you, Professor Mrinalini, former Dean, Faculty of Education, Osmania University. So, we have been discussing all through about knowledge and different processes of knowledge, knowing about it and the means of knowledge, different types of knowledge and other things. So, now let us try to understand what are the other ways or other kinds of knowledge that you get exposed in your life, and how do you get to know about them, how it helps you in acquisition of some knowledge in your life, how does it help you. See, some of you may be from some of the village background, or some of you may be from urban backgrounds, rural background. So all this background will enable you to understand or acquire so much of knowledge. Simple example, if you are a farmer's child, or if you are a carpenter child, or if you are an industrialist child, so each one of you have some kind of knowledge which you are not really formally acquiring it in the classroom through different books and other things, but you are acquiring through some other ways or some other means. You are acquiring some knowledge. Like that, a community will help us to learn something. By doing certain things we learn some knowledge through our intuitive process. So far I have discussed with you all this process and means of knowing. Let me just crisply wind it and then scaffold it into these things. So one knowledge all of you know, which we have been learning, the formalized knowledge through our disciplines that we are learning. Maybe math you are learning, science you are learning, language you are learning, all these subjects through some disciplinary knowledge that you are learning through different subjects. It could be any of those subjects. In your school, if you see, like when you are studying in school, you have studied some 6 subjects where you had 3 languages and 3 other subjects. Similarly, when you have gone for intermediate, you have specialized in some sciences or social science or some other aspects, like that you have studied. When you have come for more specialization at your higher education or graduate level, you had different kinds of subjects you have studied. So like that, various subjects will have a purpose of providing you an approach, a system, a methodology to acquire the knowledge. So like that, one of those aspects is various subjects through which you acquire the knowledge. When I said other kinds of knowledge, of course you have been formally trained, tuned and learning. As student teachers, you should know there are so many ways where you can connect the student to learn. So one is, no doubt we are doing a formal teaching learning process through our formalized education system with some subjects which are taught, which are examined and then tested, and a degree is given. This is all the formalized system that is happening. That is one aspect of or other kinds of knowledge that you acquire. Then one knowledge is, even in the formal system, through some practical doing you may be learning. Practically doing many more things than you are doing connected to your formal disciplinary knowledge. Suppose if you are learning science, you may be doing experiment. If you are learning some technical courses, then you are doing that respective technical related skill training is given, or you are doing those things and learning some things. Or you may be doing so many things at home from morning till night, every day in and out. So many tasks you do and you learn and acquire so much of knowledge. You are not an electrician or you are not an electrical engineer, but still you can fuse or you can find out any error in the bulb or in the meter or anywhere. So this is by doing. From childhood you may be observing your parent or somebody or electrician doing it. You must have picked up something. So while doing, practically you acquire some knowledge. Similarly, in the community, because of tradition, practices, observations, doing, connecting, talking to people, interacting with people. So many ways in our own vicinity where we live, that is a community where we live, also enable us to acquire some knowledge. Similarly, our spiritual aspects, sometimes intuitive knowledge or tacit knowledge we call it. So like that, explicitly we learn certain things, implicitly also we learn certain things. So these are all other ways. Why I am talking about all these other ways of learning or knowledge? Because as a teacher in the classroom, it's not only enough if you just think of just pushing that information or knowledge from the book to the student mind, memorize it, reproduce or vomit in the examination. That is what is happening in the name of teaching in our classrooms or in our education system, where students are per se getting degrees, acquiring these all degrees, and ultimately they are not really prepared or developed holistically to acquire holistic knowledge. So if you know about all these sources or ways and kinds of knowledge that are also possible, where you can connect them to your formal system, also make the students to become conscious about all that. You know, some children are so observant, they just look around, they ask so many questions. Some children are very passive, very silent, they may be moving inside, they may be thinking. I am not saying if they are silent they are not thinking, but we need to stimulate, we need to really make them active and dynamic and know what is happening with them. So this is where teacher's role becomes very, very important, to connect them to other kinds of knowledge. So let us try to understand what are those all other kinds of knowledge, how did they emerge and what are they. And all of us know, when I say empirical knowledge, empirical means through experience. So when you experience something, you know, you taste food, that is also an experience. You conduct an experiment, that is also an experience. You visit a place, that is also an experience, field experience. You watch a movie, you read a newspaper, you know, these are all experiences. So many experiences will enable you to acquire some knowledge. So what is that knowledge which is acquired through empirical, or that knowledge is called as empirical knowledge? That is gained through your primary senses. I have told you already, sensory knowledge or knowledge through senses. So this sensory knowledge through tasting, through observing or seeing or viewing and feeling and hearing, smelling, all these senses, sensorial, all of you know about this sensory knowledge. So like that you get the sensory knowledge. Suppose I say computer is black. So you just view that computer and establish, yes, this is the correct color of the computer. There may be a white computer also, or there may be anything, anything that you see around you. So that will enable you to experience. So why I am saying experience? Because a knowledge that you acquire through experience, empirically, by on your own, when you acquire that knowledge, that will become permanent in your memory traces, and that you will enjoy it and you will really internalize that knowledge, and that becomes a permanent knowledge where you connect to that knowledge. It's not just memorized in the memory traces, but the student will really enjoy by experiencing the knowledge which they acquire in the classroom, whether it is science or social science or language, whatever subject you are teaching. Instead of making them to memorize what is a verb, what is a noun, or some structural grammar or functional grammar when you are teaching them, when you are functionally teaching them, children are able to really apply those technicalities related to language than structurally teaching. Earlier we used to teach structural grammar, what is a verb, what is a noun, and we used to give some example statements, sentences they used to construct, but still suddenly when they have to use, it's used to be very difficult. That's the reason we are giving now practical experience of using a noun. I am asking the children, what is your name? Then the child will say, this is my name. So in the process you are making them to understand what is that subject, what is that noun, what is that verb. These things become, without their conscious effort, they are just speaking correct language. So like that, experientially when you teach something, it becomes more permanent, more enjoyable, more clear, rather it is more clear, clarity they will develop, and they will have some right kind of approach towards knowing right things. So this experience if you give in the classroom while learning all the subjects, I think children will learn in a better way. So reason why we say these days all curriculum when you design, 50 practical and 50 theory, and practical and theory should go hand in hand. Theory should be different and practical should be different. No. So like that, empirically through experience, all learning should happen, experience based learning we are saying today. So like that, if you can give that experience, then child will learn in a better way. So like that, you can go to this website I will provide you, you can link, through that link you can learn much more than what I said to you. Then knowledge, in a way we can say it's a power, if you know more, then you are more empowered. If you know many things, then you are more empowered and you will get more clarifications. You can really do many things, and you can apply that knowledge and do many things and know many things. So like that, knowledge is considered, Socrates considered it as power. So like that, you have. And when I said the knowledge which is brought from so many disciplines, that means you have so many textbooks which are given by our NCERT board. They have NCERT has written or published so many books. Similarly, our SCERT has published so many books for the state curriculum. So like that, these books related to language, whether it is primary level, secondary level, or at the higher secondary level, whatever level it may be, depending upon the age, stage and the relevance to that particular class, accordingly discipline level and that knowledge which is required for them in that particular discipline, for that class, for that stage, for that age relevant, that material or content or the matter or material has to be put into our textbook as a script or textual form. So all the textual knowledge, when you put in the published form, script form, which is being published by a particular authority, then it becomes authentic. If I write and publish on my own, it may not have so much of value as it is having a value of an authority. A particular, suppose let us say Sage publisher or some Black Swan has published or Oxford has published or some good publisher in our own Indian context, some of the publishers who publish, who are having some standard or authority, then that authoritative knowledge related to that particular area becomes more authoritative or more valid. So like that, you may have knowledge related to different disciplines which is established or proved or approved and published by some authority. So like that, our NCERT has published so many books for school curriculum, for different levels of school curriculum. Similarly, our SCERTs have published so many books for different levels of classes. So when you talk about the language, how the language, knowledge related to language is important for the child, all of you know, 3 R's it starts with: reading, writing, and related to language, 4 skills of language, listening, speaking, reading and writing. Like that, all the 4 skills, by the time you teach or complete this language as a knowledge you give to the child should acquire and empower in all the 4 skills of knowledge. Then further, when they groom and grow further, then they should develop academic writing, expository writing. Like that, you have further fine-tuned levels or higher levels of language related issues, that the child should be able to write a document correctly or present their feelings or experiences or whatever they have in their mind, they should be able to express them. So like that, the whole language, the discipline related to language should empower the children in acquiring those skills of knowledge and express themselves, communicate themselves effectively. That is the purpose of language. Apart from that, of course, language cannot be taught in vacuum. You take the examples or you take the stories, you take the literature. In literature further, when they go extreme literature, through language, the literature part of it, they will learn history and other things. Even through language, you can have a kind of correlation. Maybe in language, you can teach a science lesson. Any lecture, any lesson, any disciplinary knowledge when you give, you need language as a communicative or a vehicle for communication. So language plays a very, very crucial role in human being's life. So that language should become very relevant to them, not just learn through poetry lessons or some prose lessons, write an essay in the exam and do some précis in the exam, fill up the blanks, use some grammatical applications. No, that is maybe the means where you make them to acquire the knowledge, but ultimate purpose of acquiring knowledge or discipline of knowledge is to empower them in communication, in expression, in presenting their own feelings or whatever they want to express themselves to the world in a right way, in a very clear way, that is clarity, and all those things should be taken care of. Similarly, mathematics is another area which is a part and parcel of everyday's life. Mathematics you should be able to connect to life, not just learn some trigonometry, calculus, something where you don't have connections to that. Still they have their own value in the respective ways. So like that, mathematics related knowledge through mathematics subjects you teach in the school. And what are the skills required for mathematics? People say, according to different schools of philosophy, they say each subject has got some skills to be, mental faculties to be trained. Like that, rigorous training of the mental faculties can happen through language, mathematics and logic, they say, grammar, they say. So these all things are also true in their own place, but at the same time the child should get the holistic knowledge. For that reason, we are giving languages to develop the language skills, mathematics to develop the logical reasoning, and other mental faculties training, and then connect them to day-to-day life, use them in their day-to-day life mathematical aspects. When you buy in a market or anything that you do in your life, you connect that mathematics, whatever concept you are teaching in the classroom, don't just teach the concept as it is, but connect them to the day-to-day life, and then see how mathematics is a part and parcel of their day-to-day life. Similarly, science, when you teach them, as I told earlier also, scientific temper and scientific attitude you need to develop in them. So all those means I told you in my earlier class, connect them through all those means to acquire this science are related to scientific knowledge. So all those conceptualization should happen through the experience, experimentation, observation, because you all know science is basically starts, or any learning starts, or scientific knowledge learning starts with observation. So that observation skills you should develop in the children, reasoning skills you should develop in the children, verification process, hypothesization, anything that they see, the science will enable them, should enable them to hypothetically visualize or try to really assume something beforehand and then start verifying it, questioning. So like that, if you acquire knowledge in the scientific process, it becomes a very relevant and a purposeful and useful knowledge. Similarly, art education, today in schools we have art education and health physical education. Art, there is a slot given to them, but art can also be integrated into our teaching learning process, maybe role playing, drawing certain things, or maybe doing certain other artifacts and other things can be involved. You know, the whole carpentry can teach you mathematics, the whole farming can help you to understand social studies and sciences. You know, everything related to science and social studies or social science you can teach in a farmland, you can teach in a mall. So like that, you see how artistically you can connect them through art. Also you can connect them, anything you can connect them through the art. And health and physical education also, it is very important for the children. We have some slots where physical exercises are given, drill period is there, assembly session they do something, but it should become more connected to the student, where you have to think about their nutrition, their exercise, their value of food and so many things, and how health checkups and everything that the children require. So these all disciplinary knowledge will help the children to groom into healthy, happy human individuals. So like that, this disciplinary knowledge the teacher has to take care in the schools and connect them, help them to grow as human healthy. And healthy, when I say both health wise as well as nourishment, health is connected with the nourishment. So food, what kind of food, what kind of exercise they have to do, how hygiene, all of those issues the teacher has to really nurture the children right from childhood to adolescence. So all those levels, different level, even this the menstrual hygiene, all that we said, the secondary level, adolescent stage. So all those practices, good practices which are required for the children, this whole disciplinary knowledge will enable the children to connect to those knowledge systems and help them to build their own system of constructing their own knowledge in their own way and adopt them to their own life. Similarly, work experience, you have seen Nai Talim, MGNCRE is doing extensively designing the curriculum for the work and education, how they are connecting the whole occupations in a village. You can teach all our disciplines, science, social science, language, all these things can be taught through all our occupations in our villages. So how do you really relate those occupational issues through the experience, work experience, we say work and education. So work should not happen, work should be the means to acquire the knowledge related to disciplines, different disciplines. That is how they are trying to come out with so many strategies and other things. And we have given you as a part of your curriculum, work experience, Nai Talim as a practical component we have introduced into your B.Ed curriculum. So you can try to just imagine and then work out and go to the field and observe people, how if you see a carpenter who is just an illiterate in our language, but he knows how to measure, how to cut, how to fit, everything he knows, he has all that skill. Unless that knowledge is there with him, he cannot connect to the skill, that is manipulation part of it. So work should lead to education, work should not happen in just vacuum, or education should not happen in vacuum, or knowledge should not be acquired in vacuum, but it should be connected for doing process. So that's how I told you the constructivist approach also they said. Similarly here, work, all of us should enable our children to develop that dignity for this labor and work and doing. So while doing, the learning should happen. So that is how you need to really enable the children to keep working and then learning. So this is one subject we have introduced in the schooling also, and we have connected to B.Ed as Nai Talim as a part of your curriculum. Similarly, earlier during 1977, when Ishwarbai Patel committee proposed to give this socially useful productive work in schools long time, I think till last decade this was a part of your school one of the periods they used to have in schools as socially useful productive work. All the waste material that is there, unused material which has to be recycled, or anything that is unwanted in the home, they used to throw them in the garbage. Instead they made the children to reuse them and then make out of that some productive work. They used to make vases, they used to make so many things out of these things, aesthetic things and useful things, and maybe manure they prepare with the vegetable waste. So like that, whatever waste come out from the home, that waste used to be recycled and reformulated or made into some useful productive thing that can be utilized by all of us. Even they used to make dusters, vases and many implements, that tools that can be used or for interior decoration. Like that, socially useful productive work used to be taught in the schools earlier days. Now also it has been, you know, considered as one of the area where you can develop that outlook in a student, how to make use of the things, not to waste anything or not to create more burden to the environmental pollution by throwing them as a garbage outside. So like that, these all disciplinary knowledge that we have been giving to the children in the school should become more meaningful to acquire them in a proper way through this disciplinary knowledge. So this is one other way where we can say other knowledge. When I say in the formalized system, all the disciplines will enable us. Every discipline has a charm of its own, a beauty of its own. Let us not consider any discipline as low or high. Some people think today only engineering courses or medical courses are good. All children are going for those things. We need social scientists also. So the teacher has to stimulate in the children what is the importance of this discipline of social sciences, how we can rebuild this society, how can we can really transform this society through the politics, through the social work, through so many other social sciences, psychology, sociology, philosophy and language, arts. These are all the disciplinary knowledge which is very important. So this kind of sensitization and stimulation the teacher has to do in the classrooms when you go to school, and encourage them if they have aptitude to go into that discipline and contribute something to the society. This is how you have to look at this disciplinary knowledge. You can give lot of activities. I have also provided you some of the activities. You can just review the curriculum of different universities and you can know how they have designed the curriculum and how it is useful, how you can make it more practical oriented. So similarly, you have another way or another kind of knowledge is doing practically. This is already skill I have discussed with you, experiential knowledge I discussed with you, all that practically by doing. Even Nayi Talim, all these are practically by doing things. If you learn most of the science, you can teach them while doing. Even social sciences you can teach them while doing. Even languages you can teach them while doing. A setup, anything that they come from home, you just ask them what happened at home. That is all practically you are making them to reflect on what has happened at home. So that whatever they did, they are talking about it. So that while doing, or you can have a role play, the children will be having a skit. So they are doing the skit. While doing the skit, they learn lot of language. So they learn so many other things, interpersonal relations and other things. So like that, you provide the experience, or practically you provide while doing. The knowledge has to be acquired by the student. I told you number of times in my earlier classes how it is important. Even I will give you some more tasks to do. You just explore MS Office and do your PowerPoint and create some use different applications of MS Office and come back to me with a document written. How did you do? Because pop-up, when you get the pop-up images, through that you try to really locate and do all these tasks of MS Office. So whatever you have done, you are doing it. You please write on a piece of paper, how did you do this, use this app. Then you will really reflect on how you are doing, not just mechanically, but by practically doing, you learn like that. So you can write an integrated art integrated lesson and technology integrated lesson. Like that you prepare, and how you did it, you please write it down. So that practically you learn what you have done or how you have done when you are integrating technology or art in your lesson planning or lesson writing. So like that, all that manipulations, all that practical work that you do, as I told you earlier also, it is finger dexterity, hand dexterity and movement of hands, movement of legs, movement of your body parts. All these things, when you collectively use them, holistically use them to do some tasks, tasks, you do lot of tasks, you do lot of applications, you do lot of mending, manipulations, all that will come in your practical. All those skills are acquired by you when you are practically doing things. And more clarification, as I told you earlier also, it will come. Even a small child can enjoy. I have given you a picture there, you can see. A small child can enjoy drawing So it will develop finger dexterity and all those psychomotor, motor skills are developed in children when they are very young. And as you grow to adolescence and later higher secondary and then higher education level, the relevant level, stage level, age level skills you require. So accordingly, if we plan the practicum engagement to those respective topics or units that we frame in our curriculum, if we really give you practical exposition or exposure to learn, I think the learning becomes more and more effective. So all these are some of the diagrams and pictorials I have given you. Similarly, you have community service or community as a source of knowledge or a type of knowledge or way of knowing certain things. So you all know community is a potential area where you learn many things. If you just go around your community in a day, you learn so many things about people, about the life, about the practices, about the tradition, about the culture, about the values, food delicacies, the dress attire. So many things you learn. It's such a rich experience than reading a 100-page book or one big textbook. If you just go to the field and observe people, their life, all those things will enrich you so much and connect you to your learning process. You may be reading in a vacuum, without much of experience to you, but as you enter into a community, so much of lived experience. Suppose you live in a village for about a week as a field experience, you acquire, I tell you, such a potential knowledge about the village. You talk about the resources that are available in the village, you can map the resources, you can map the people, human resources available, material resources available, how people are living, what are their problems, what are their issues, and what are the employment issues, what is the literacy rate. So many issues you can know, who are the people who are dominating in the village, how people are getting suppressed. Suppose if a village where somebody is really suppressing the village people, how to really empower them, awaken them, sensitize them and help them to overcome this suppression or oppression. So many things I can tell you, even the practices they have. You just go to the old lady, the adults in the village, you just interview them, talk to them, interact with them. They tell you about the whole village story. You learn so much of knowledge, otherwise you can't get that knowledge in your textbook or anywhere, or your teacher cannot tell you. Like that, if you can really travel, suppose let us say across India for about a year or two, I think you get more knowledge than all what you study up to your higher education level also. I can claim that you can do that. So you can study across the cultures that are there in India if you travel 2 years. I don't think you can study so much in any of those courses. Any course when you are doing, that related disciplinary knowledge you are getting. But community knowledge is such a potential area, wonderful area where you can acquire lot of knowledge over the centuries, the traditions, the religious practices, the civilization process and the development progress, how it happened, how industrial system has really influenced and how village system was there. All the urbanization process, so many things you can really understand the whole culture, the practices, the tradition, the religiosity, many things that you can really learn through the community. You can learn through these community visits or community living or community experiences or interaction with the people in the community. And you can even learn about so many occupations, so many practices. You can see in the National Education Policy recent past, they said some 10 days the child has to go to the field and then spend time with one occupationist in whichever area they have interest. They wanted them to go and do little apprenticeship and then learn those skills from them. So like that, the community is such a potential area where the school has and community, both of them have the moral obligation towards each other. That connect between the school and community is missing link in modern education system. So the teacher should know how much potential is this community, and we are obligated to this community welfare and progress and development and awakening of the community. So you should develop that connection between the community and the school and connect this knowledge that is learnt in the school to be useful for the community, and also community knowledge should be acquired by the children through these field visits, and give all your engagement, that is your assignments or whatever tasks you are giving to children, connect them to the community. Then they go to the community, maybe they survey some 10 homes and know the literacy of the people, know about the hygiene practices, health practices, diseases and pollution, anything. You can connect them to your classroom lectures by making them to go around the community. So that kind of knowledge related to the community will really enable them develop some kind of tolerance towards other people. Suppose they visit different religious groups, they realize every religion has got its own importance. So they get a different kind of an approach towards a religion, towards their own fellow students. So you develop so many values and value system and empathy towards other fellows, and you realize what are the kinds of living that people are living, what are the problems they have. Now as a student, if you can sensitize in them these all empathetic values in them and moral values in them, social values in them, I think they become a better human being than what we are doing. So this other kind of knowledge, if as student teachers of tomorrow, if you really learn and know about the power in that, the treasure in that, I think you try to connect your learning process to the community and enable them to develop that learning and connect that interpersonal relationships with different people, and hierarchies will be there in the communities, all that hierarchies, why they happen. So this reflections and sensitization you can do in children by teaching them this community knowledge. So community knowledge that is practiced and available, as we all know, a statement, school is a miniature of the community, because the children who come to the school, they are representatives from the community. So the whole community is in your school. So you need to know what is that community. So as a student teacher, we make you to go to the community, do surveys and write some documents and do some documentation. All this, why we are saying, because when you go to the school as a regular teacher, or now when you go for internship, you should go around the school community and know from where the children are coming, and then try to understand their psychology and connect to them, contextualize the teaching learning process in your school. That is how community knowledge is so important for you as student teachers, and help the community around you, understand the community around you, and connect the community around your school. And when you become a teacher, around your community, even wherever you are living in a colony, you try to develop that community, relationship building, learning, helping each other, maintaining good relationships. So all these values, they do not come just by teaching in the classroom. They just happen when you really have a live experience in the community where you go. So like that, this all things, history, everything you can teach very easily by connecting to this community knowledge. So like that, students can learn so many things, the mannerisms, the habits, the values, everything, the real knowledge from the community you can learn, occupations, everything has got a potential knowledge in it. So you learn how to share with the people, how to understand people, how to empathize people, all those things, many things you can learn through this community knowledge. Similarly, within the community you are learning traditional knowledge or religious knowledge, spiritual knowledge, all this, say festivities are there, some programs will happen, some days national festivals are observed, so many religious festivities are observed in villages, in communities, in various places. So when you observe them, there is a science in it, there is encapsulated science in it. These practices have something to learn for all of us. It is not a festival means wearing a new cloth, eating some food. That is not the purpose of any traditional or festivity that we are celebrating. That meaningful knowledge that you have to give about the community, when you really teach the children or enable the children to understand the beauty of these all festivities. There is a tradition in it, there is a science, encapsulated science in it. So these things you should enable them to learn. These are all called as traditional knowledge. We say other type of knowledge is traditional knowledge. Let us not cut it and throw it out. This is all old practices. No, tradition is science. I claim you can verify any traditional practice that is being done in any community or in any family. You just go deep into those things and try to rationalize it. You will find a very scientific reason behind. Suppose, let us say you are using neem leaves, you are using turmeric. Today with all this pandemic process and other things, people have realized so much about the value of all those traditional practices. So the tradition never explicitly tell you with scientific reason, they just put it as a practice or a habit in you. So these are all scientific processes which over ages they have practiced and they got the benefit out of it. In a way it is science, but we don't have a what you call them as a, they don't have what you call them patents. In West they use the word patent. We don't have in East like that patent, but we call it as a tradition, a practice, a habit in a home, right from every day-to-day habits to that of our learning. So everywhere this traditional knowledge will make students to understand that basic, systems that are established in a community or in a society like that. So all that certain things are unique to that particular society. All these things are very scientific, related to the geographical conditions, the food they eat, the practices they have, the clothing they have, agricultural practices, anything you see, it's all geographically based. So like that, the language, anything you see that is connected to that social context. So like that, the community knowledge has to be really connected to the tradition that is being practiced in a particular community. So the traditional knowledge is very, very important, which is learned by the children as a habit over a period of time, and all of us believe that and also practice that and get benefit out of it. So that part you have to sensitize the children when you teach them in the school about any of our practices, enable them, empower them to make use of it in appropriate way. So this is how you can see the shared knowledge through, you can share, all the children you can ask them to share about their own. Suppose there are 5 different religious cities are there, 5 different language children are there, 5 different caste system children are there, different communities, parts of the city they may be coming if it is centrally located. So this whole sharing should happen in the classroom where they understand the science behind the practices that they have at home. So like that, these all knowledges can be specialized and you can establish them. Maybe tomorrow we can take the patents for all our traditional practices also. So what you see explicitly outside, very clearly, concretely, all that knowledge that you get is called explicit knowledge. That knowledge which you get through the tradition, through experience, through your own commitment towards something and doing it, and all those competencies that within you which are available as an aptitude in you, as a potential in you through genes or whatever it is, that is called tacit knowledge, which is implicit knowledge. So these are also other types of knowledge which we can say as other kinds of knowledge. If the teacher knows how to really, even a definition I have given you in my earlier lecture, education, the meaning of education is drawing out the potential within the child or making the internal or the potential as actuality. That means within the child there is lot of potential. So that inside of whatever is available, that has to become explicit. So this implicit knowledge, if the teacher can recognize and make it explicit through their practices, through their acts, through their empirical, tasks that they give to the children and enable them to know what are the potential that is within them. They may be good artist, singer or musician or a occupationist, anything that they are available implicitly in the child. So we should discover the implicit knowledge within the child, implicit knowledge outside, whatever is available, that you have to connect and then teach the children. So maybe it is very difficult, not so easy as I am speaking to you, but we need to understand that, and this knowledge has to become an experiential knowledge for the children and enable them to acquire that knowledge. So very difficult, the tacit one, the internal one is difficult. It requires a lot of observation and understanding. Maybe personality, when we say in psychology, if you want to know the personality of a child or an individual, overnight we cannot say. It requires a lot of observation and understanding and knowing. So this is how implicit knowledge and explicit knowledge. I am not going into the details because it's very clear, whatever is outside, explicit, which is seen, concrete, simple, easily known, the information, the knowledge, the theoretical things that are available in the books, that are available in the newspaper, maybe media, which can be seen, which can be sensed, which can be experienced, all that is explicit. All that is hidden, all that is in the practice, which need to be observed, known. So like that, all those things will come, the tacit knowledge. So through practice, through experience, through internship, through exposition, through doing, all those things, maybe through storytelling, all those things you can bring the tacit knowledge, which is tradition, community, all that insights that are there, that you can bring out. So like that you can have the difference between the explicit knowledge and implicit knowledge. Then intuitive, I have discussed you in my earlier lecture when I was talking to you about means of knowing or ways of knowing. Intuitive knowledge I have already explained to you. So this intuitive knowledge is a sudden flash of knowledge which comes to your mind. In a way it is called as sixth sense in Indian traditional context or religious point of view or philosophical point of view. So intuition is the sixth sense. In a way, intuition is a sudden flash or an innovative idea which just comes without your conscious effort. So such things will happen in common people, but people who have personified, they will get them very frequently. Like all our Vedic knowledge has been considered as apaurushaya, which is written not in the conscious state of mind, but in the unconscious or subconscious state of mind. Those sages have written. So this is what is the way where you can look into that. So in a way, why I am talking about this, or why is it important for you? Because all children have that intuitive mind. So we need to really awaken that consciousness that is inside of the child. That is purity, and consciousness has to be really generated or stimulated or sensitized by the teacher, so that that intuitive knowledge, the original innate capacities that are there, which are not known to the child or anybody. So maybe gradually the child, when it starts moving, especially through the spiritual practices, meditation, yoga, like that you get. And even scientists, when they are doing a kind of research, or any researcher, they are doing a kind of a serious inquiry into one particular area, that one particular point, when you go on looking into it, gradually your mind gets connected to that truth. So intuition will lead you to truth or truthful knowledge. So this processes the teacher has to really consciously do in a classroom. There you get this intuitive knowledge. I just read for you one definition for that. Is a knowledge that is a person find within himself in a moment of insight, just like that flash I told you. It is an internal knowledge. Intuition may occur as a sudden arrival of solution to one's problem. That's why I said scientists, they have, when they find a solution to their experiment, find out a new knowledge, that is in a way it's a kind of intuitive knowledge, arrival of solution to one's problem. Suppose you get some problem, continuously you dwell upon the problem, you suddenly get some solution for that problem, that is intuitive idea. Puzzle, some puzzle you are working, you don't get the solution, you just go on working, suddenly a flash will come in your mind, this may help you to solve the problem, puzzle. So like that, so it needs a lot of perseverance and working on that. Suddenly it won't come like acquired knowledge through memory or something like that. It needs a lot of perseverance, and you have to do a lot of insightful job in that. So it may come in the form of a quick guess of solution to a problem presented by another person. So this kind of problem solving approach, if you use in the classroom, maybe gradually the child starts deeply involving into the processes of learning, and those intuitive, the real original knowledge may emerge from the child. Tomorrow they all may become good scientists who will add to the existing knowledge. I just take one quote from Einstein, who said, intuitive knowledge is knowledge stored in subsystem memory that is not accessible to the higher brain functions. So what all brain functions we know, these are all logical reasoning, thinking, critical thinking, all these things happen, it is much beyond that. So intuitive knowledge may be stored in DNA or a motor control subsystem, like the knowledge that controls walking. Suddenly, something happens, you just stop. So this unconsciously, such certain things keep happening in our everyday life also. But autonomic, this is a kind of autonomic nervous system, uses intuitive knowledge to operate our basic bodily functions. Even in the sleep, suppose a mosquito bite you, you are not conscious that mosquito is biting you, but your hand will go and just snub it, and it will scratch. When there is itching, you are scratching, you don't know, you are not conscious in the deep sleep. But this involuntary, that autonomic nervous system keep happening in us. So there lies our intuitive power. That's what Einstein said. I will just read for you the quote which he has given to you. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. That's what he said. That intuitive mind, that level of consciousness which we have not brought out in our education system. So that's how he wanted it to come out as these flashes of ideas. We need to appreciate them. Similarly, intuition could be through analytical process, it can happen, through observation it can happen. All our science knowledge is, the solution is intuitive. All that process may be looking very scientific, but that solution which the scientist has found out, it is exactly the intuitive knowledge which has come out. Even through questioning, because as you go on deeper questions, second order questions, higher order questions, questioning, then you go deeper layers and go into more deeper reasoning process. So questioning is also a way where you arrive at that last pinpointed subconscious level which is hidden inside of your DNA, so it will come out. So questioning. And empathetic, you find some solutions to moral issues and other social issues, social oppressions and other things. These are also, in a way, you can say, empathetic process also will lead to some intuitions. You feel pain, suffering, that will result out into some awakening at a particular point of time. Similarly, adaptive approach or a type of intuition where you get adapted to some new situation. So altogether you moved into a new place. Suddenly your mind and your whole thing has to get adapted to that. That sudden flash of change, adoption will happen in your mind. So this is also a process of intuition. Like that, these are all 5 types of intuition. How this intuition work, all of us know, it's just like a bulb. When you switch on, the bulb glows. Like that in our mind, mental faculties, that light which comes out, that potential power which emanates out like a huge powerful bulb. We cannot compare it with a bulb, but a powerful bulb, when it glows, a flash when it comes, that experience will be there in the mind. So like that you can connect this knowledge and content, how these all things are not much necessary, but you should know what we know, we know, what we know we don't know, what we don't know we know, what we don't know we know. This is a four what you say square where you can play and know about yourself, by like your self awareness I told you other day, SWOT analysis. Like that you should have this box and enable the student and yourself also do this activity. Then you will know what all the things that you know, what tools you know, what knowledge you have, all those things, and what you don't know you can know, and what you don't know you know, and what you know you don't know. No, these all four squares if you write, you know about yourself, and you can just overcome those weaknesses and make them as your what you don't know you make them that you know. That is the process of knowledge acquisition. So like that the content and awareness relationship is there in getting awareness or knowing about new things which you don't know. Unless you do that analysis at your level, you cannot know. So that you can know. This will happen unconsciously, but you can consciously also do and enable the student also to do, so that our ego will go and we will start learning things. So even the values you can know, and so many things you can know. So like this, these are the other types of knowledge which the student teacher has to know and acquire them, and really helps you to connect to your student and make them to expose to all types of knowledge and create a holistic learning process in day-to-day life and whole through their life from birth till death. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can give me those questions and take those all tasks, assignments and field exposure I have given you as activities in my presentation. You work them and we can meet in the next class, and if you have any more questions you can raise them, we will respond and interact with each other.